Good evening, my friends. Welcome to this Happiness After Codependency episode. I am Marshall Bircher, and I am your guide into coming into knowing, loving, and being who you are, which is how we heal codependency. I'm excited to be with you today. Today's topic, well, it's one that's hot, I guess. I don't know. The topic is why sex can be so incredible in a toxic relationship. There's a lot of insight that comes into this about deprivation, unmet needs, euphoria, fantasy, those kinds of things. So we're going to be jumping into that today. So kind of an adult topic. So choose wisely there. Before we do that, I'm going to get this shared out to the community. If you're looking for a place where you can get guidance, you can get tools, you can get support, the community can help you there. You can learn about the community by checking the link above on Facebook, below on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for doing that because we just crossed 4,000 subscribers. So I'm really excited about that. So let's get this shared out to the community. Boom. All right. So why sex can be so incredible in toxic relationships. This is not a universal thing in toxic relationships. This is something that varies because, people are different. People vary, things of that nature. Mute the audio there. But I want to give some insight into this from some of my own personal experience with codependency, fantasy, and euphoria, and then deprivation of needs. So typically in toxic relationships, there's an enormous amount of neglect happening. And this neglect is emotional, this neglect is physical, it's psychological. We're not getting the touch we need, we're not getting the affection we need, we're not getting the words, the discussion, the connection, the witnessing, being understood, feeling seen, feeling valued that we need. We aren't being psychologically, we don't feel safe with them. There's always something on edge. There's something going on. Right? There is that hypervigilance of what's going to happen, what's going to change, when's the next shoe going to drop. All of this creates an enormous amount of tension and ache and longing in the body. And that produces, or that causes us to seek, to chase, to yearn. Right? So now we're dealing with this huge desert of connection. We're dealing with an enormous amount of lack. And in that is the starvation of our needs, the starvation of connection, the starvation of safety, and the starvation of our own sense of value in this. So we come back to those three necessities of identity, connection, and safety. We're riding this wave, right? And now comes sex. Sex is a moment where we're getting attention from them. We're getting affection. We're getting touch. We're getting closeness. We're getting words of affirmation, loving words, kind words. Technically, we're being love bombed in this. We're experiencing the physical euphoria that comes with that. We're experiencing the closeness we've been hungering for. We're having the attention we've been craving from them. This is an enormous dose of oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. It's like being in the desert and the sky opens up with water and and we're flooded with it. No wonder the sex can feel magical, that it can be addictive in that respect. No wonder we keep craving it after it's happened, because now we're back into a drought. We're technically going through an intermittent reinforcement cycle where we are love bombed and then we descend into distress and discard as they withdraw from us, as they're no longer engaged with us, as they might even be implementing abuse or discarding us. And then the sex comes in and boom, back into euphoria. So we start the seesaw of intermittent reinforcement. This is why sex can be so incredible in toxic relationships is because sex is this mega dose of attention, connection, affirmation, praise, closeness, value. All that gets mixed in there. That's why it's that way. That's why a lot of times when I've worked with clients, worked with students, they're like, but the sex was so incredible. It was so great. It was so, it's like they knew me. It felt really deep. It was really connective. Well, yeah. Yeah, you were experiencing what you had been fantasizing about having with them in that moment. It felt like your fantasy, your hope had become free. It become real, rather. It became actual in this moment. It felt like, oh, my efforts have paid off. Ooh, they do love me. Yeah. Now, sometimes in this dynamic, on the other side, is they don't do anything sexually, or they're unengaged, they're unattentive, they don't care. It's lackluster. Yeah. And that happens, I have found, at least in my research, I don't have personal experience with this, but what I've read and found is that happens because they don't care about it. It doesn't affirm them. Now, some narcissistic individuals or unhealthy individuals find a lot of value in their own being the sexual peak, the one that was best. So they invest a lot of time into that too. So they can create the fantasy we have with them by feeding us certain signals that way, by creating the environment, by executing it, which gives us this fantasy for next time. Sometimes they'll triangulate the fantasy through other people and give them the attention we're looking for. That's a manipulation. So sex can be used in a lot of different ways with people like this. But when it comes specifically to why sex can be so incredible in a toxic relationship, is it deals with the euphoria it creates, the fantasy we have involved with it, and the deprivation or neglect we're dealing with. That's what we have to be conscious about. We have to be sensitive to in our experience. To care for the parts of us that go through the euphoria and the deprivation. Because when we start getting the desert properly watered in a safe, titrated, gradual process, it starts to come alive. It starts to transform from a desert into its natural self, whether it's a meadow, whether it's a forest, maybe it's a combination of things. It starts to emerge. That's the work of healing. It's bringing in what that part of us needs in a way that's consistent, reliable, and enough so that we don't overwhelm ourselves. So that's a really important aspect to nurturing ourselves on that. Yeah, withholding as a power move. Yeah. So yeah, they use that way. That's a deeply scarring thing that way too. So yeah, sex can be really, really incredible. Not because they're good at it, not because this is the right relationship, but because it is the incredibleness we feel in it, we're largely manufacturing in a lot of ways. When we really start looking at it, we're like, I was putting that onto them. They were just, it's 5 minutes. Or that was like blah, blah time. But then we start to realize, this deprivation, this fantasy, this euphoria I feel is all me. And we can start seeing what they're doing and get a little more contact with reality there. So I just wanted to touch on that because I've seen that coming up in some questions in other groups. And I was like, oh, I could talk on that. So that is today's little training there. Thank you guys for being here. Go gently with yourselves. Go kindly with this work. The bonding hormones, oh yeah. The oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine. All those things make it intense. And it's that closeness. And we're being deprivated in that. I mean, we're not getting it consistently. So yeah, we're going to crave those things. And when we get doses of that, we get that peak experience there. So big deal. So with what arises for you in this, go gently with what is there, because it's a delicate thing. We don't earn the neglect. We don't earn the deprivation. What we do have to look at is accessing the cycle and then breaking that cycle with different choices. So go gently with yourselves and have a great day. I'll see you guys in our next episode. Bye-bye.